We've heard from some great people already. So now we're going to hear from somebody else. So Jerome, are you there?
I am.
Here he
Hi.
is. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much. I've been listening to everybody else beforehand. That was really, really interesting. Thank you very much, Andy, for gathering all everybody. Well done. Good job.
No, fantastic. Well, Jerome, I'm going to, without further ado, I'm just going to hand over the system essentially to you, and I'll talk to you at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. So I want to talk to you today about how to expand into Europe. A few words about us. We are e-commerce. We help brands grow faster and successfully on Amazon globally. So we have European brands. We help them to go on in the States, and we've got also American brands or Indian brands or Japanese brands. We help to expand into Europe, and we wanted to share some of the insights we share with our customers. So basically, we've built an e-commerce growth model, and it's got 4 pillars. So we help customers both in consulting, but also in account management, handling their account. And we've got always those 4 steps. So defining the strategy, managing operations or preparing for operations, working on the conversion and growing traffic. So, and that's really the formula we use, which has showed success after success with the different accounts we handle. So the agenda today will follow the same form. It will be first about, okay, when you decide to go, you're based in the States, you're probably already selling in the US and Canada. You might even sell to the UK, but you say, okay, how should I, what's the right expansion strategy? That's the first thing, is what's my plan? The second is making sure you've got the right operation. The third one is looking at conversion and specifically local content. And then in the end, it's generating local traffic also, and we'll end up with, like the others, with a Q&A session. So first on the strategy part is we see 3 steps, and TJ talked also with similar things. Is we see first is decide which account. By which account, I mean a vendor account, 1P, or a seller account, 2P. Then is deciding where, which country, and what to sell, which product. And then finally is working on your pricing. The big difference between Europe and in the US, for example, is that in Europe, all prices are included with VAT, whereas in the US, it's without VAT. So the pricing and how you work on your pricing can have a big impact. And that typically, when we start with the customer, are the 3 things we look into, and we say, okay, we have to look at, and that will have a big impact on their success or non-success on Amazon. So the first thing is understanding the different go-to-market options on Amazon. So the one which a lot of you probably know is the Amazon Seller Central option, the 2P option. Some people say 3P, but if you're a brand owner, we call it 2P. So basically, as a seller, you sell on Amazon, and your products are either FBA or FBM. But there are other options, which another one is a more complex option, and it's only on a invitation only mode. It's this vendor option, and this is a B2B2C option where you're selling to Amazon, and Amazon is selling your products to the market. And this, you can have 2 different types of deliveries. One is done by Amazon. It's very similar to FBA, let's say. And the second option is drop shipment. So it's direct fulfillment by the vendor. So Amazon comes and picks the things up from your warehouse and delivers to the customer. And the customers don't know at all that it's been picked up from your location. And that makes it similar to the FBN option. Obviously, the third option is you find a distributor or retailer or someone who can have a seller account in your name, or which can retail or distribute your products. This can seem a bit simple, but actually taking the right decision can have a big impact on your success or not. And we will see that the different options have got some pros and cons, and can have a big impact once again on your success. sorry, on your success. So now getting into a bit of understanding Europe in terms of potential of market. This is a funny map I like very much. Is if you were to put all the different states, American states, to cover Europe. So actually, Andy would be sitting in California right now, and I'm in Colorado, actually, from that map. So just to compare, the land area you can see is similar, but the population is 1.6 times bigger in Europe. So the market is much larger than the American market. In terms of purchasing power, actually, there's a stronger purchasing power in Europe if you look at it overall. So the market is bigger, but also the purchasing power is bigger. If you look at Brexit, and it's very funny because with Andy, we've been talking about Brexit for many years together each time we met. But the last, like, Brexit, and so we knew we finally got the answer end of January, but since last 6 weeks I haven't heard one time about Brexit because the coronavirus has completely swept this out. So it was such a hot topic, and now nobody is really talking about it anymore because the focus is really, so okay, how are we going to save the worldwide economy? So to be honest, we don't see any impact of Brexit today, and we don't see, and there's no chance that the UK will have sort of block products between Europe and the UK. So we're very we have no concern about the Brexit today. Much more obviously on the coronavirus and the impact on the business generally. But the Brexit, we don't see that as a blocking situation anymore in terms of expanding into Europe. In terms of marketplaces, actually this slide is already a bit out of date, because there are 6 marketplaces today, because on top of the UK and Germany, France, Spain, and Italy, you have now the Dutch market, so Holland, which has been added just at the beginning of the year, which is available for sellers, not yet for vendors. But basically you've got those 6 countries, so EU 6 now, where you can sell. In terms of warehousing, you've got those 5 countries, so there's no warehouse in Holland yet, but there are warehouses, in Poland, in Slovakia, and in Czech Republic. So you've got other countries where Amazon's got warehouses, and which can have an impact on VAT. We will see a bit later. In terms of traffic, so this data is from 2017, but actually the numbers are pretty much stable. The biggest market by far is still Germany. The UK market is close behind, but basically if you want to expand into Europe, UK coming from the US, the UK is the easiest market because you've got the English language, obviously, but Germany is a much bigger market in terms of potential. So if you cover those 2 markets, you've got actually more than 50% of the Amazon potential in Europe. After that, the countries which are fighting against each other are France, Italy, and Spain. The situation in each of these countries is a bit different. In France, Amazon is smaller because they are very strong local players. And TJ talked about Cdiscount, for example, which is a very big player. You've got Fnac also, and you've got Vente Privée, which are very big websites which actually are really fighting against Amazon and preventing it to get as big as it is in Germany or UK. Italy and Spain is a different situation. There's not much competition, to be honest. It's just that the e-commerce market is not really mature yet in these markets, and it's in big growth, but it's coming from very far away. And in Spain, you will have Alibaba and with AliExpress, for example, but it's very, very far away from Amazon, and there's no other competitors. So like Pearl, I think, was mentioning, the good thing is that these markets are growing still. You've got much less players, so to fight on to get the buy box is much less harder, or to pay for the advert for keywords, it's much cheaper. So you can get a better position. Now, the size of the market in each country is much smaller. And in Italy and Spain, the sales most of the time are quite small. But it can be an investment in the future, like the ones who will have a strong position in Italy and Spain today will be very successful once once these markets grow a lot. So once you have set up, you sort of basically decided where you want to go, which country, which type of account, what type of products, and looked at the pricing, the important part is setting up the right operation. And this has been touched by Pearl, also by TJ. And let me give my, my insights and my angle on that point. One of the things is looking at European fulfillment centers, specifically if you're a seller. You can see that the most number of fulfillment centers are in the UK with 20 distribution centers. The second one is Germany, but you need to be careful because Germany uses the ones in Poland, Slovakia, and Czech Republic. So you can see those two countries have got the biggest market, but also the biggest distribution centers. And you can see that Spain has got 4 compared to the UK 20. So that gives you an idea of the size of the market. So if you're looking at having a warehouse somewhere in Europe, you can take this into account. And a lot of customers or a lot of brands take warehousing in Holland, and they're very famous for that, in Rotterdam or in Amsterdam. So you could decide if you wanted to have a fulfillment center of your own, have it in Holland, for example, to serve both markets. When you're doing FBA, you don't need to have your own fulfillment centers. You can directly deliver to Amazon. If you're only doing Amazon, the FBA option will enable that, and that will make your life easier. But deciding in where you start, obviously, usually we go for, you either start your first seller account from the United Kingdom or for Germany, because these are the 2 main markets, and you really want to focus on them. So if you look at that from an operational point of view, if you compare vendor to seller, so 1P to 2P, on the vendor account, you can only have a vendor account if you're able to deliver within 1 week. So Amazon typically would send orders on the Monday, and you need to deliver them by the Friday. So if you don't have a warehouse in Europe, you can't be basically a vendor. So the only option is to be a seller, and the FBA delivery, as most of you know, is very simple. You just send a bulk order, and you decide which item you send to Amazon, and Amazon will decide to store it, and they will put everything for you, and that's very simple. On the vendor account, you have 1 country, or you can have multiple country options, meaning you could have 1 vendor account to handle all of Europe, but you could also decide to have multiple vendor accounts and to decide to which country to follow each country, for example. Those both options are possible, making it a bit more complicated or a bit more complex, but that's possible. On the seller option, it's similar to when you're doing business with Canada from the US, for example. You have what we call pan-EU FBA, which enables you to ship from 1 country throughout all of Europe. And you've got different options, pan-EU, and Andy talked about it at the very beginning. You've got pan-EU, you've got EFN, you've got different options to enable you to ship throughout Europe. In terms of VAT, handling VAT, I won't go into too much details. Andy is the one who with whom we work mostly when we have to work on VAT. You have to know that like in Europe, VAT can be a bit complex because each country has potentially a different VAT rate. And the ones for, I mean, now it's becoming a bit better. Now it's more around the 20%, but it's different. Like Spain is 21, Germany is 19. So that makes that's a bit complicated. The way VAT is handled also is different. The way VAT is reported is different in Germany, in the UK, in France. Like Germany, you have to have every month a reporting done for your VAT. In the UK, you can do that every quarter, for example. So that makes differences. As I said before, the important thing to note is that all prices in Europe are included with VAT. You never see prices without VAT, or only if you're selling B2B between people, but most of the time it's with VAT. And one thing which is important to note also, that before shipping any goods to Europe, you need to make sure you have a VAT registration and you have a URI number, because you need to register when you're importing the goods, the VAT you're paying upon receipt of the goods. And if you don't have that, we've had to help some of customers, for example, where their goods were blocked at customs in the UK, for example, because they hadn't booked or hadn't filed for a VAT number, and customs didn't want to let the products go through because the VAT number was not there and they didn't have a URI number. So we were able, with Andy's help, to handle that for a week, with less than a week, like 10 days, and he had to pay for storage fees for 10 days. So that was quite painful for them. So you need to make sure this is handled before you ship products to Europe. In terms of VAT, if you compare vendor to seller, when you are a vendor, you're selling B2B. Basically, you're selling to another company, which is Amazon. So you don't need a VAT number. You don't need to have a VAT registration number. You just sell it to them, and it's very simple. You don't need to do any declaration. It's very simple. When you're selling on seller, you're selling to end consumers, so you need to declare your VAT. So this part is much more complicated on the seller side than on the vendor side. One thing which is obvious for everyone who's traveled a bit in Europe, I mean, try to go in France or Italy or south of Europe and try to only speaking English, for example, can be complicated to get people to understand you. So each country has got a different language, and some are complicated, some are not. North of Europe typically will speak a bit more English, but to be able to sell your products, you need to make sure you understand the local culture and that you have local languages. And saying, okay, Europe is a great market because it's a bigger market than the US. It's got better purchasing power. It's a very stable economy. However, it's a complex mix of different countries and cultures, and being successful means you need to address each market a bit separately. And the good thing is, once you're successful in Europe, it's a very stable situation. In the US, you can lose your position very quickly because someone can come, and it's very easy to outperform anybody else. In Europe, once you have a strong position, it's very difficult for anybody to come from somewhere else and to challenge you, because the European culture is also more traditional in a way, and they are much more, once something is successful, it will stay successful for longer, and it will be much more difficult to challenge. So that's one thing to take into consideration, and seeing, okay, if you're investing in being successful in the different countries of Europe, this will be a long-term investment. Talking of which, and looking at content, we focus a lot of our time, obviously, in helping our customers and the brands we help to understand what they need to do to have local content. So these are examples, sorry for the picture, but these are examples of badly translated content. For example, you can see in the text here that it's automated translation. So we've used automated translation of English into English, and you can see that there's no chance of selling when you using a bad translation. Here is examples of translation into French. For example, you can see that they've put it's something to it's comb for beards, and it says in French, it says stainless steel beard, which doesn't make any sense, obviously. Also, there is a piece of jewelry, and they use the word pourri, which in French means rotten. So obviously, for a French customer, you will probably not want to buy this product. Another product, which is a garment, and it says for homme inférieur, which is for lower men. So typically, these are things which in the market, the non-English markets like German, French, Spanish, or Italian, typically some sellers do that because they use Google Translate, or sometimes it's even internal system of Amazon which is translating, and the quality is not always very good, and you get into that, and there's no chance you will be selling and taking advantage of the potential of the European market with such translations. Translation needs to be very thorough. You've got not only you've got the title, the description, and you're not only translating word for word, you're also translating in terms of meaning, in terms of taking into account local culture. And also you need to be very careful about keywords. Is if you only take the US keywords, they will probably not work in the UK, because each country has got its own keywords. Even for the English language, it's got specific keywords. One thing which is interesting, for example, in Germany, 1/3 of the backend keywords are English keywords, because a lot of foreign countries like Eastern Europe countries, customers are going on Amazon Germany. So you even need to check for English keywords on Amazon Germany, and which are not the same as English keywords on amazon.co.uk. So you've got different tools. I'm listing some here. Celix we use a lot with their Sonar tool, Helium 10, Merchant Words, which can help you. But you can also check on Amazon yourself, looking at the keywords and see what the system comes up with. And it's very important to localize your content and your keywords to make sure your organic search, you will come up in your organic search. So when I was talking about investment to be successful in the long run, it will be impossible for you to be successful in the non-English countries with a content which is not localized with high quality content. And for example, you could have a step-by-step approach, and starting from, okay, UK, the changes will be minor compared to the English, the American content. So this could be the first step. The second step could be going into Germany, which is the largest market, and then making sure you have a great content, you build up your sales, and you generate some cash, and then you get into France, for example, and then Spain, and then Italy. And that's a great way of expanding on the different markets without investing or spending too much money at the beginning. The final part is about generating traffic locally. So your keywords are local. So obviously your campaigns will work, and you will have to put on your campaigns, on your sponsored ad campaigns, the keywords which are working successfully in the local country. And for that, the automatic campaigns are really good, because the automatic campaigns will show you which type of keywords are working well in the country, and you can use that also for the SEO. So some things also to take into account is that you have also different customer profiles, or different ways to approach customers in the different countries. Like in Germany, it's very performance and detail oriented. So this you can use also in your content and the way you do advertising. So you will want to speak a lot about the performance. When you're talking about more south of Europe, so France, Italy, or Spain, you will need to make sure of how you're presenting, so the quality of the picture, or the way you're putting the picture. The social recognition in Spain, for example, it can be very important. So we need to be careful about having sort of general comments about the Germans are like that, the French are like that. But you do have every country, you can make jokes in France, you cannot make in Germany, and vice versa with the UK, for example. So the sense of humor, or the sense of how you need to be perceived, can be very different. And that, for your advertising and the way you do your, for example, the sponsored brands advertising, the the sentences you would use needs to be different and needs to be tested with local people, which really have got French native or German native, which can check this for you, and that will make a big difference in your success. So now I'm open for Q&A. And just a wrap up about what we do and how we help brands. Typically, we have in our team every languages which is spoken to in Europe, to be sure that we have someone which is a Spanish native, Italian native, German native, French native, English native, so that we make sure that all the things we publish make sense, and that if customers are responding or making comments, we can also reply to them in their own language, also understand what they're talking about, and have this cultural aspects of things. That's it, was my presentation.
Jerome, that was amazing. Thank you very much. I think there was a huge amount of information there. So thank you very much for sharing all of that. Absolutely fantastic. So let's see if there's any questions that are going to come in. If you can ask some questions, that'd be amazing. I've got a couple of questions just while we wait, if that's okay, Jerome.
Yes.
What's the number one thing, and this is the same question I've asked everyone else pretty much, what's the number one thing you see that makes the biggest difference on Amazon today?
Well, if it's today, as in within the coronavirus, today more than ever, but it's generally being able to pivot and to adapt fast. And one thing I usually say, what we help with is we come up with strategies and we work with companies, and sometimes strategies don't work. And our work is to see that as early as possible. And we've had brands we work with, for example, Amazon stopped shipping their products because they are not on the sort of focus list. Okay, then how do we handle it to do FBM quickly? Should we create a new SKU number and have an FBM offer and this kind of things? And that's typically, so being agile and being on top of your game is for me a key element. And for some companies, and I think TJ was mentioning that, and Pearl also, it's very difficult to be on top of your game when you have got so many things working for you. So working with other people helping you on your market can help you be on top of it and being reactive and say, okay, be careful, you need to do that, be careful, we're not generating the result we should be, we need to change fast. That Amazon is very fast, and you need to follow that pace.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely crucial. That ability to pivot and switch and to adapt to the current climate is going to be crucial. And I think over the next 1 to 6 months, we're going to see that time and time again, and they're going to be the successful ones as we come out of this. So yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Jerome. Thank you very much for giving up your hugely valuable time to help to educate all the people online. Yeah, is there any ways that obviously the email you're going to put through, is there any other ways that people can get in contact with you?
LinkedIn is a good platform. We publish a lot there. So, which
is where we met, in fact. We met online. Without wanting to sound like a dating app.
You shouldn't share everything.
Yeah.
What happens on LinkedIn stays on LinkedIn, Andy.
Fantastic. All right, Jerome, look, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
It's been amazing having you on, and hopefully you'll stick around and listen to the next things that are going on.